Something ancient sleeps beneath the Egyptian sands.
Inside the Great Pyramid are a number of fascinating chambers and corridors.
Older than the pharaohs, older than the flood, a forgotten structure rises, not just from the desert, but from time itself.
I think not about how the Egyptians built the pyramid. I think more about how the pyramid built Egypt.
This is not the Egypt you were taught about. Not tombs, not pyramid, but machines.
Researchers propose that the pyramids constructed around the world are, in fact, power plants.
Machines so precise, modern tools struggle to explain them.
It's built over caverns and had liquid mercury and mica incorporated into its design, and we know that the gods came and left from this place.
Massive stones shaped with surgical perfection, shafts that lead to dark depths where water still flows, and rooms that whisper secrets in electric echoes.
Christopher Dunn's theories indicates that the Great Pyramid was sending a microwave signal to a satellite. And in fact, studies of his working devices have shown that this probably would work.
Who built these? And more importantly, why were they buried beneath history's lies? Let's unearth what was never meant to be found. Precision problem. The Great Pyramid of Giza isn't just massive, it's a masterpiece of precision. Its alignment to true north is almost perfect, deviating by a mere 3/60ths of a degree. That's a level of accuracy few modern buildings can replicate, even with today's GPS and laser-guided tools. But the pyramid was built without satellites, without compasses, without digital instruments. When it was first constructed, it pointed directly to the North Pole.
When you look at the Great Pyramid's alignment, it's aligned very, very close to true north.
Over time, the Earth's axial precession has shifted that alignment slightly. Still, the message is clear. This was no accident. The builders knew exactly what they were doing. And then there's the location. The pyramid sits at the geographic center of Earth's landmass. If you drew a line across the globe that touches the most land running east to west, and another from north to south, the two would intersect near the pyramid. Out of all the places on the planet, the structure stands exactly where the world comes together. Was it luck, coincidence, or was it intentional? The pyramid's construction is equally baffling. It's made of approximately 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing between 2.5 and 80 tons. Some of these stones are so large that modern cranes would struggle to move them. Yet somehow the ancient builders quarried, transported, and lifted them with uncanny precision.
The Great Pyramid is a testament to ancient Egyptians' ingenuity, acumen, and technical and scientific prowess.
The stones are so tightly fit that not even a razor blade can slide between them. This isn't a random pile of rocks. It's engineering of the highest order. So the question remains, why? Why would a civilization thousands of years ago, supposedly working with copper chisels, wooden sleds, and simple rope, go to such mind-boggling lengths? The mainstream narrative tells us the pyramid was a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu. That's the story taught in textbooks. But the interior tells a different tale. There are no wall carvings, no hieroglyphs, no inscriptions, nobody. Nothing that confirms it was ever used as a burial chamber. Even more curious is the pyramid's celestial alignment. The layout of the three main pyramids on the Giza Plateau mirrors the stars of Orion's belt with remarkable accuracy. The last time these stars aligned in this exact formation with the pyramids below was around 10,450 BC. That's more than 12,000 years ago, more than twice the age assigned by traditional Egyptology. So, if the stars lined up, then does that mean the pyramids were built then? Adding to the mystery is the silence in the historical record. The ancient Egyptians documented everything, from seasonal floods to agricultural yields, yet there is no mention of the construction of the pyramids. No scroll, no carving, no tale passed down through the dynasties. It raises a startling possibility. The pyramids may have been inherited, ancient structures passed down from an even earlier civilization, a culture so advanced and so long forgotten that only its monuments remain. And if that's true, our understanding of human history may be missing an entire chapter. These pyramids don't just challenge the timeline, they challenge everything. So maybe the Great Pyramid wasn't built for the dead. Maybe it wasn't a tomb at all. Maybe it was technology, not the kind we recognize today, but a kind we've forgotten, and it's still waiting to be understood. Machining evidence. As you walk closer to the Great Pyramid of Giza, something unusual begins to catch your eye. Scattered around the site are large, dense blocks of basalt, a volcanic stone not found naturally in the region. That alone is odd. But a closer look reveals something even stranger. Many of these blocks are etched with deep, vertical lines. At first glance, they might look like scratches, wear from time or tools, but they're not. These grooves are too straight, too evenly spaced. They're not random marks. They look like the result of a saw, more specifically, a mechanical saw. Bronze chisels, the supposed tools of the time, wouldn't have stood a chance. Basalt is far too hard. Even when paired with abrasive materials like silica sand, there's no known technique from ancient Egypt capable of producing such precise, repeated cuts. These marks suggest the use of something rotating, cutting under pressure with consistency, something machine-like. And this is just the beginning. Nearby, researchers have uncovered even more curious signs. On certain stones, curved slices have been found, cuts that resemble the path of large, circular saws. Some of these impressions match blades with diameters estimated between 18 to 24 inches. These weren't tools for small tasks. These were industrial-scale instruments, far beyond anything we associate with ancient handwork. It makes you pause. What kind of civilization could achieve this? If this is what remains above ground, what might be hidden below? Just past the second pyramid lies more evidence that something greater was at play. There are stone channels embedded in the rock, channels filled with remnants of molten granite. One block contains a visible ribbon of melted stone running through it, the color still shifting from deep red to orange like frozen fire. Granite doesn't melt easily. It takes over 200 degrees Celsius, far beyond the reach of primitive fire pits or kilns. The molten trails don't appear to be accidental. They seem intentional, guided, and placed with purpose. Even more telling, several stones show signs of intense scorching, blackened and burned in patches as though exposed to extreme heat. Not just one isolated incident, but a pattern across the site. If the Great Pyramid and its surroundings were simply part of a burial complex, what role did such intense heat and cutting play? It doesn't feel ceremonial, it feels industrial. Today we use precision machines, CNC routers, laser cutters, and 3D printers, and we think nothing of it. But when similar signs appear in ancient sites, we hesitate to accept what they might mean. Perhaps it's because these marks don't fit the history we've written. Perhaps they point to something we've forgotten. These are more than scars on stone. They are signatures, left behind by a technology that shouldn't have existed, but somehow did. Osiris Shaft. Beneath the Giza Plateau, far below the sand and stone seen by tourists and archaeologists alike, something older and more mysterious waits in silence. Not just tunnels or burial chambers, not a hidden tomb, but something carved deep into the living rock, something engineered. It's called the Osiris Shaft. Discovered over a century ago, this vertical shaft plunges more than 115 feet, about 35 meters, straight into the earth. Narrow and steep, it offers no ladders, no staircases, and no safe passage. Even today, descending it is a challenge. Yet somehow, thousands of years ago, people not only reached its depths, they carried massive stone sarcophagi down with them. Each sarcophagus found inside weighs more than 30 tons. They weren't carved in place. They weren't shaped underground. These massive boxes were transported through a shaft barely wide enough to allow a person to pass. The logistics alone seem impossible by conventional understanding. And then there's the material. Most of the sarcophagi are made from granite, a stone already difficult to work with. But one stands out. It's made of dacite, a rare and incredibly hard material that doesn't exist anywhere in Africa. In fact, no other known artifact in Egypt was made from it. The dacite sarcophagus was imported, transported across great distances, possibly across oceans, and then somehow lowered into the depths of this shaft. Why? At the lowest level of the shaft lies something even more puzzling: water. A man-made canal, still filled to this day, encircles the chamber. This isn't stagnant floodwater. It's clear and steady, suggesting a controlled source. A natural spring, perhaps, fed through underground channels deliberately carved beneath one of the driest regions on Earth. This wasn't luck. It was engineering. The channels appear designed to bring water in and maintain it at a specific level. Over millennia, the system has held, quietly doing its job beneath the shifting sands. Whoever built it understood more than just stone. They understood hydrology. So again, we must ask, why? Why would anyone haul impossibly heavy sarcophagi down such a shaft? Why fill the chamber with water and go to such lengths to keep it stable? What was the real purpose of the Osiris Shaft? Some researchers believe it was never a burial site at all, that these sarcophagi weren't coffins, but components, parts of a larger system. A fusion of water, stone, and vibration. A device meant to create something powerful, energy perhaps, or resonance. Something beyond our current understanding. If that's true, the Osiris Shaft isn't a tomb. It's a machine, a forgotten technology, a relic from a civilization lost to time, built not to honor the dead, but to harness the living forces of nature. The deeper you descend beneath Giza, the more the narrative shifts. It's no longer a story of pharaohs and rituals. It becomes a story of systems, of networks, of ancient technology still buried in the bedrock of history, waiting patiently to be understood. Granite Boxes. Just south of the Giza Plateau, buried beneath layers of sand and silence, lies a site that continues to baffle researchers to this day. It's known as the Serapeum of Saqqara, and on the surface, it appears to be a typical Egyptian necropolis, just another burial ground for the sacred bulls of the Apis cult. But appearances can be deceiving. Step below ground and the illusion fades. In the cool, dark corridors of the Serapeum, hidden from the world above, are more than 20 colossal stone boxes. Each one was carved from a single block of granite, some with lids intact way close to 70 tons. The raw granite blocks come from closer to 200 tons, immense even by today's standards. Their sheer size is astonishing. But it's not the weight that raises eyebrows, it's the precision. These boxes weren't roughly hewn. Their corners are perfectly square. Their surfaces are polished smooth, both inside and out. Some edges are so straight they could pass for laser cuts. The walls maintain a uniform thickness throughout, and the lids fit with such perfection that they form vacuum seals. This isn't the work of primitive tools. This is engineering, flawless, deliberate, and technologically baffling. Mainstream archaeologists tell us the ancient Egyptians used copper chisels and stone hammers to achieve this. They point to generations of craftsmanship, patience, and muscle. But granite is one of the hardest natural materials on Earth, far harder than copper. Even with centuries of trial and error, shaping it to such precise tolerances, especially on the interior of these sealed boxes, seems nearly impossible with the tools they supposedly had. And then there's the sound. When struck, the granite boxes emit a deep, resonant tone. The vibrations linger, as though the stone itself is singing. These weren't just containers, they were acoustic instruments, devices tuned to specific frequencies. Some theorists believe this was no accident, that the dimensions, the material, even the polish were selected with vibration in mind. Could they have been used for energy manipulation, storage, resonance? A kind of ancient sound chamber, built not to bury but to activate? And the mystery only grows. These massive boxes were placed deep underground, in tunnels that twist and narrow. There's barely room to walk, let alone move 100-ton monoliths. So how did they do it? What systems were used to lower them with such precision? Even the lighting remains a mystery. There are no soot marks, no signs of torches, nothing to suggest fire was ever used to illuminate the workspace. Yet the work is flawless, symmetrical, aligned, and clean. Just stone, just silence, just the echoes of something we don't yet understand. The Serapeum doesn't just challenge our understanding of ancient engineering, it dares us to question what we think we know about the past. These boxes aren't simply ancient, they are impossible. Whoever built them knew more than just stonework. They understood power. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. Water pump theory. What if the Great Pyramid of Giza wasn't a tomb at all? What if it were something far more advanced, a machine? In 1962, Edward Kunkel posed that very question. His theory was radical for its time. The Great Pyramid wasn't built to honor a king or serve as his eternal resting place. Instead, he claimed, it was constructed to move water, an immense hydraulic system functioning as a ram pump. His book, Pharaoh's Pump, laid out the idea in detail. Most scholars dismissed it outright. Too speculative, too unconventional. But not everyone turned away. A few engineers began to look closer, and what they saw challenged everything. Inside the pyramid, narrow shafts stretch from one chamber to another. Some climb upward, others descend deep underground. Reservoirs, sloped channels, and sealed compartments are scattered throughout the structure. Deep below the pyramid, cut directly into the bedrock, lies a jagged, worn chamber, far too crude to be ceremonial. To Kunkel, it wasn't a burial site. It was a hydraulic chamber, the working core of a water-moving machine. A ram pump doesn't need electricity. It operates using the natural flow of water, pressure, and elevation. Water enters the system, builds momentum, and is forced upward using its own energy. In the desert, such a device would seem out of place. But Giza isn't just any desert. The pyramid sits just west of the Nile and not far from the ancient Lake Moeris, both of which were at a higher elevation in antiquity. Perfect conditions for a gravity-fed pump. Water could have been directed into the pyramid, where the system could pressurize and send it to higher ground, perhaps for irrigation or storage. Imagine the implications. Instead of honoring death, the pyramid might have supported life, turning barren land into green fields, feeding a population, stabilizing a civilization. No longer just a monument, it becomes a public utility, the centerpiece of the greatest infrastructure project in ancient history. And the labor? The 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons, weren't hauled just for ritual. They were placed for function. The cost? In modern terms, building the pyramid today would require an estimated $5 billion. For a tomb, that's excessive. For a structure designed to sustain a nation, that cost suddenly makes sense. Then there's the mystery of Zawiet El Aryan. Just a few miles from Giza lies a site now hidden beneath a military base. In the early 20th century, archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti began excavating what appeared to be a massive unfinished pyramid. But what he found was far stranger, a polished granite-lined pit with evidence of water flow and a pink granite vat sealed with lime and clay. This wasn't a construction site. It looked more like a receiving tank, a destination. In 1905, a powerful storm filled the pit with 10 feet of rainwater. Then something remarkable happened. The water disappeared quickly. It drained down into the earth as though pulled by an invisible hand. Barsanti believed there were hidden channels beneath, an underground system connected to something larger. He tried to continue the excavation, but funding dried up. War came. He died before he could finish. Since the 1960s, access to the site has been strictly denied. A military facility now stands guard over the mystery. No digging, no entry, no answers. But the question remains, what if the pit at Zawiet El Aryan wasn't meant to be a pyramid at all? What if it was the end point, the final destination for water pumped from the Great Pyramid? Together, the two sites might have formed a system, a closed loop, not built for burial, but for survival, not a monument to the dead, but a lifeline for the living. Ancient electricity. What if the Great Pyramid of Giza wasn't just a marvel of architecture? What if it could do something more, something powerful? That's the question that captured the imagination of John Cadman, a marine engineer and expert in hydraulics. In the late 1990s, Cadman came across a dusty copy of Edward Kunkel's 1962 book, Pharaoh's Pump. The book proposed a bold idea, that the pyramid once operated as a massive water pump. Where most dismissed it as fringe speculation, Cadman saw potential. Not just theoretical musings, but engineering possibilities worth testing. With years of experience in fluid dynamics, Cadman approached the theory with a practical eye. He zeroed in on the subterranean chamber, a rough-hewn cavity carved directly into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. While Egyptologists labeled it a burial chamber, Cadman noticed something familiar. The chamber's shape, orientation, and markings closely resembled that of a hydraulic ram pump. Then came something even more compelling: cavitation marks on the ceiling, damage caused by the formation of vapor bubbles from violently moving water. These weren't decorative etchings, they were scars. Physical evidence of pressure, force, and repeated movement. The theory began to shift from possibility to probability. Cadman needed proof, so he built it. His first model was flawed. It leaked, cracked, and failed to circulate water. The second model also collapsed under pressure. The third met the same fate. But Cadman was undeterred. On his fourth try, this time encased in solid concrete and placed in a flowing stream, something changed. It worked. Water surged through the system, and pressure built within. Then came something unexpected. A pulse wave, a rhythmic thump, began to travel through the model, through the concrete, and into the ground. Cadman could feel it from 20 feet away and hear it from more than 100. This wasn't just a pump, it was a resonating machine. He had recreated what could have once pulsed beneath the sands of Giza over 4,000 years ago. A structure that didn't just move water, it generated vibration. And that vibration, he believed, had the power to create something else: electricity. Because granite, the very stone that lines the pyramid's king's chamber, is more than just hard and heavy. It's piezoelectric. When pressure is applied, it generates an electric charge. Combined with the pulse from the pump, the granite could act like a battery, turning Earth's own movement into usable power. It wasn't a new concept. In 1905, Nikola Tesla proposed something remarkably similar. He believed ancient structures like the pyramids were designed not for worship, but for function. He even patented a design for an electromagnetic pyramid. His famous Wardenclyffe Tower, topped with a giant metal dome, closely resembled the capstone that once sat atop the Great Pyramid, reportedly made of gold, one of the most conductive materials known. Tesla didn't see monuments, he saw machines. And maybe, just maybe, he was right. The materials used in the Great Pyramid's construction start to make sense when viewed through this lens. The Tura limestone outer casing, a natural insulator. The granite-lined chambers and corridors, natural conductors. The gold capstone, a perfect electrical terminal. It's the same design logic behind modern electrical systems. Insulation on the outside, conduction on the inside. In this context, the pyramid becomes more than a marvel. It becomes a power plant, built with purpose, to capture the Earth's pulse, to turn sound, pressure, and movement into usable energy, and perhaps to light up a world we've forgotten. Hidden chambers. In 1993, a small robotic probe was sent deep into one of the narrow shafts inside the Great Pyramid. What it discovered stunned researchers and ignited a mystery that still lingers today. At the end of the shaft, the probe encountered a door. Not a stone blockage, but an actual door, crafted with precision, fitted with copper handles, and sealed shut. This wasn't random. It was deliberate, purposeful. A chamber beyond seemed to beckon, but for years no one could see what lay behind it. Then, in 2011, a team of researchers finally managed to drill a small borehole and thread a camera through what the lens revealed defied expectations. Inside the space, now referred to as the Queen's Chamber antechamber, were copper components and symbols painted on the floor. The copper looked like wiring. The symbols, strange and angular, reminded some researchers of a circuit diagram. To others, they looked like schematics, instructions. Whatever this room was, it didn't feel ceremonial. It felt functional, a control panel, hidden for a reason. There were no signs of torches, no soot on the ceiling. The walls were clean, unmarked, as if this chamber wasn't meant for people at all, but for something else. For energy, resonance, power. Why would a civilization go to such lengths to seal off a chamber like this? Why the copper? Why the secrecy? And why, just as global curiosity was increasing, did the Egyptian government begin sealing off similar sites? Take Zoyet El Arian. After the death of archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti in 1917, this massive stone-lined pit, complete with polished granite flooring and strange features, was largely forgotten. But in the 1960s, as interest in ancient energy theories began to rise, the area was suddenly closed off. A military base now covers the site. Access is strictly forbidden. No excavations, no visitors, no answers. What's down there? And why is it hidden? Even beneath the Great Pyramid itself, there are whispers of sealed tunnels, blocked corridors, and unexplored rooms, spaces that may hold the keys to a forgotten era. Some say these measures are for preservation, but others believe it's something far more calculated. Control, suppression. If the ancient world had once harnessed energy, sound, water, and vibration, then that knowledge would have been powerful, and whoever controlled it controlled everything. Maybe that's still true. The Great Pyramid is not done revealing its secrets. It never was. But someone, somewhere, doesn't want the world to hear them. Lost civilization. If these structures weren't built by the Egyptians we know, then who were the real architects? The evidence keeps piling up. Massive stone boxes that no ancient tools could carve. Granite melted by a heat source we can't explain. Chambers were hidden, sealed, and untouched for millennia. And a complex system of underground water channels that still functions today. It doesn't add up. The ancient Egyptians were meticulous record keepers. They documented everything, from the rise and fall of the Nile to the names of their pets. Yet strangely, there is no mention of how the Great Pyramid was built, no description of the Osiris Shaft, no reference to Zoyet El Arian. Not one word. Why? Because these structures may have already existed. The Egyptians could have inherited them, mysteries passed down from a world long forgotten. They may have honored these sites, used them, even repurposed them. But build them? No, that legacy might belong to someone else entirely. A civilization older than our stories allow. A people lost to time, washed away by flood, consumed by fire, or erased by nature's slow decay. But before they vanished, they built with purpose, with knowledge of vibration, water flow, resonance, and energy. And what they left behind still hums beneath the desert floor. This isn't just a new idea, it's a new timeline. Before Mesopotamia, before Sumer, before Egypt, there may have been an age of light, a civilization that saw nature not as a threat, but as a power source. A society that built not just tombs or homes, but machines, instruments carved from the earth itself. The echoes of that world aren't limited to Egypt. You'll find them across the planet, the massive mortarless walls of Peru, the megalithic blocks of Baalbek, the sunken ruins off the coasts of Japan and India, separated by oceans yet all telling the same story in the same language. Stone, not primitive, not tribal, but precise, calculated, intentional. These were survivors, keepers of a knowledge we've barely begun to understand. And if their fingerprints still linger under the Great Pyramid, what else might be waiting? What other machines lie buried, calling from beneath centuries of sand and silence? This story doesn't end with Egypt. It may not even begin there. But the trail is there and the clues are growing louder. All we have to do is listen and dare to dig deeper. Maybe the Great Pyramid was more than stone. Maybe it was memory. A message carved into bedrock, left behind by a civilization erased by time. One we've overlooked, one we've buried, but one we may be ready to rediscover. Because the past is never truly gone. It sleeps and waits. So the next time you see the Great Pyramid, don't just admire the shape. Listen, look deeper. Ask yourself what still lies below.